Hello and a very warm welcome to the Film Review on BBC News. To take us through this week's cinema releases is Mark Kermode, as ever. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
What have you been watching?
Interesting week. We have Greed, for which the tagline rings, the devil is in the retail.
This is a very special breed.
Little Joe, which is a sci-fi thriller, or is it? Is it all in the mind?
How are we going to rebrand for...
And Like a Boss, a comedy that needs to be a lot funnier than it actually is.
The devil is in the retail.
Yeah.
Good tagline.
It's a great tagline.
It's a great tagline.
So Steve Coogan stars as Sir Richard Greedy Macready, who is this kind of loathsome British retail mogul who has recently been hauled up in front of a bunch of MPs to account for himself. This is a fictional tale.
Fictional,
but
yes.
obviously will ring certain bells with people who've been watching the news. It is filmed in the run-up to a significant birthday where he is sunning himself on a Greek island, building a colosseum at which he is going to lord it over all his toga-clad friends at a party which is kind of meant to be some kind of, huge Roman spectacular, including wild animals. However, people are dropping out left, right and centre, so they're having to turn to not real celebrities, but lookalikes. Here's a clip.
Sir Richard.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Sir Richard.
Yeah, Simon Cowell. Very good. He's good, yeah.
Yes, Simon Cowell.
Yeah. Who are you?
Adele.
Of course you are. Yeah. Who's the guy with the bandana?
It's Rod Stewart.
What's that Rod Stewart's bitter older brother? Who's she?
Kylie Minogue.
A push. She'll have to wear a name badge. Is that George Michael?
He's amazing.
Apparently he can sing as well.
George Michael's dead.
Okay, I think the agency just sent anyone that we had on their books.
Well, put the ghost of George Michael back on a plane to Club Tropicana. Our drinks are not free for him.
Okay, now you laughed
There's
all the way
lots
through
of
that.
very cheesy jokes, but they did make me laugh.
It is. So, Steve Coogan, who I'm a big fan of anyway, directed by Michael Winterbottom. They've worked together before, done some very, very interesting films. So, on the one hand, this kind of revels in the grotesquerie of the millionaire yachting lifestyle. On the other hand, it's actually aiming at a wider target, which is to do with how is it that all this wealth is produced? Who are the workers that are being exploited in order that people can be this? Well, then that's very important for Michael Winterbottom's part of the story. I think that, originally Sacha Baron Cohen was earmarked to play the central role, and you can imagine him playing it a lot more grotesquely. The thing I like about Steve Coogan's portrayal is that he's very good at playing characters who are essentially utterly kind of creepy and unlovable, but playing them in a way which actually makes their company bearable for the course of the movie. So for me, I think that Steve Coogan was pretty good. I think sometimes there's a disparity between the very broad strokes comedy of the film itself and the attempt to deal with more serious subject matters such as refugees, such as worker exploitation.
I was curious how much that worked, because you could say lots of very serious things about the fashion industry, but trying to put the two together is quite a challenge.
But crucially, Michael Winterbottom, that's the kind of thing that he does because he is interested in those issues, and it wouldn't be a Michael Winterbottom film without them. So although I think that actually they don't necessarily mesh together perfectly in terms of the drama, you wouldn't want the comedy without them, because it would kind of take the heart out of the film. So I enjoyed it while I was watching it. I don't think it's particularly sort of savagely insightful, but it's a fun watch. But it does have something serious at its heart. Whether or not it completely manages to make that work dramatically, I think is still a question of debate. Although there is a very interesting intertwining of the modern retail story with kind of archetypal Greek myth, which actually does tie together rather well as the drama sort of moves on. I enjoyed it, I think, more than some critics did.
Okay. Little Joe.
Yeah, now
I don't even know how to begin to describe this, but
okay.
It is curious and fascinating and goodness.
So I loved it. This is a brilliantly, for me, low-key sci-fi psychological thriller from Jessica Hausner, and it is about a plant which has been invented by a scientist played by Emily Beecham, designed to make the owner happy. It produces oxytocin in the owner, which is the mother hormone. You will love this plant like you will love your own child, but the question is the plant infecting people around it? Is it somehow changing them to its own ends? Kerry Fox, who's a colleague, thinks that her dog is no longer her dog, which is a very body snatches kind of thing. My dog is no longer my dog. Emily Beecham's character starts to think that possibly her son is a stranger to her, but then of course he is. He's a certain age, he's changing, he's becoming a different person. The thing I loved about it was there is a way of reading this film in which it is pretty much all in the minds of the central character. I mean, our central character is torn between home life and work, and there's a suggestion by her psychotherapist that actually everything she's feeling is projected guilt, because they've even called the plant Little Joe, named after her. So she said, let's call it Little Joe. I've seen it a couple of times now. Each time I saw it, it looked different. The first time I thought it was one side of the story, the second time I thought it was another. It's chilly and icy and beautifully designed. What did you think?
Visually, I loved it. All those wide shots of some of it here, the plants and the banks and banks of plants that they're cultivating. I thought it was, and I went into it quite nervous because it's well documented. I'm a bit of a chicken.
So
with some
were you
films,
going in thinking it was a horror, like a horror inflected thing?
I thought there would be a little bit of horror with it, so obviously I was a little nervous.
Okay.
But I wouldn't describe it as horror.
No, but
it sort of burrows into your brain, and you're not sure what's going on.
It's a chiller,
but in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really like it, and I love the fact that it's one of those films that genuinely you come out of it questioning. You know, was something happening? Wasn't it happening? Is it all in the mind? And I think it's really well played. I think the cast are great.
Performances are terrific, yes.
And the colour design of it, that every use of green and yellow and red is all very, very, particularly put together. I thought it was great. I think it's a bit of a hard sell. I think it's not for everybody, but I thought it was really terrific.
Yes, I would agree with that. I have not seen today's third choice.
No, and I wouldn't argue that you should rush out. So this is a comedy with Tiffany Haddish and Rose Byrne. They are lifelong friends who have started up a cosmetics company that they're kind of running as a cottage industry. The setup is that essentially in comes this beauty mogul who says, I am going to invest in your company because I think, your company is fabulous, but I'm going to sign a contract that says that if the two of you fall out, I basically get control of the company. That's the setup. Here's a clip.
I need you to be fierce yourself so that you can inspire the ugly people to buy themselves into gorgeousness. Listen to the word. Fierced. Fierced. What is it saying to you?
I hear fear, then erst.
I hear that too.
Fierced.
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 Now whisper it. Feel it inside you. Fierced. Fierced. Daring. Unexpected. Exhilarating. That's fierced. Can you be fierced?
Yes, we can certainly try.
So
I don't want her as my boss.
no, but what a great performance! That's Salma Hayek, doing the kind of over-the-top thing, and there are three really, really great performers there.
Yes.
And the setup's quite interesting. So why is it that the laughs stop about 10 minutes in? And I think this is a perfect example of the script is the problem. The script is nothing like as inventive or as clever or as intimate or intriguing or interesting as it should be. You've got the first act, which is here's the setup, they're friends, she kind of wants to split them apart because that's what she does, and then you think, and this is going where? And the way it goes is that in order to get the laughs, it's kind of lowest common denominator, crash, shrieky, shouty, everything's kind of cranked up. And it's a real shame because I did think for about the first 5 or 10 minutes, okay, yep, it's
going somewhere.
And then
yes.
it's like, oh no, it's just that other film. And it's a real shame because there are few things more disheartening than watching really great screen talent get wasted, and I think this is a kind of perfect example of it. It's a shame.
Very disappointing. And best out, therefore, is still.
This is the last. It's the last week I'm going to say this, okay? Because I know, but Parasite is still in cinemas. It is still, drawing audiences. And again, how brilliant that a foreign language film won the Oscar for Best Picture. I know that some high-ranking politicians think that that's a bad thing, and that actually we should all be watching Gone with the Wind. But actually, some of us are watching Parasite, a fantastically forward-looking, inventive, intelligent, challenging, strange movie by Bong Joon-ho, and I loved it. I've now seen it 4 times. I can't wait to see the black and white version. And this for me is what cinema is about. I just loved the movie. You liked it?
No, I liked it a lot, and it's hugely intelligent. I think hugely intelligent, and yet sometimes unexpectedly funny. I mean, I was really, every time I laughed, I thought, oh, I didn't think I'd be laughing at all in this film. And it takes you through a lot of different emotions, and I like that in a film.
The genius of it is that sometimes you're laughing and recoiling at the same time.
Yes.
Because it is, and actually, funnily enough, I think this is a connection with Little Joe, because I think Little Joe has a similar quality to it, that you don't know whether to laugh or be creeped out by certain things. And I love films in which there is an ambiguity at the heart of it, which is what I love about Parasite, which is what I love about Little Joe as well.
Yes, you're just not quite sure. But
Just
yes,
not quite
it's
sure.
terrific.
Yeah.
And what's on DVD this week?
So Honeyland, which again I know you've seen, I was really, really taken by this, not least because it was a subject that I know very, very little about. It's wild beekeeping. And it begins, in fact, it did begin life as a straightforward documentary about wild beekeeping, but it then becomes so much else. It becomes a story of mothers and daughters and neighbours and changing worlds and how a way of life is starting to disappear. And it does all of this in a way that's almost imperceptible, that you almost don't notice it shifting from one tone to the other. And again, this was one of those films when I knew nothing about it before going in other than the title. And one of the great joys of cinema is it can take you somewhere where you absolutely didn't expect, and that is what Honeyland did for me.
It's hard going in places, I won't lie, it is. There are elements I loved about it, and the big sweeping planes, and I loved that, but some of it was really tough.
Really tough. Well, but I don't know that really tough is a bad thing. Exactly. I think,
absolutely.
Challenging cinema is what makes cinema important, although some people just want to watch Gone with the Wind.
Excellent. Obviously, you'll be doing that for the next week.
Yeah.
Mark, thanks very much. See you next time. Thanks very much for being with us. Enjoy your cinema going, whatever you choose to see. See you soon. Bye-bye. Yes.